podcast of the Saving the World Through Health and Wellness. We're excited to bring you the show. We've been talking about it for months, but we finally have gotten to a point where it's summertime. I'm retired. JP has less school duties right now. And so we're finally able to start bringing information to you that we hope makes a difference in your lives as it has in ours. So,
and I got a haircut.
And he got a haircut for it too.
Yeah.
So, and he shaved. It may be a day old, but now it's just suave.
Yeah.
It's suave looking. But all right, JP, tell us a little bit about your story and why you like the thought of co-hosting with me on this particular topic.
Well, in talking about wellness it's a lot. It's mind, body, spirit. It's all of it, right? Mm-hmm. And you got to have yourself in the right place. And I found that out. From 0 to 25, I was in great shape, very athletic, Division I college athlete type athletic. Of course, got elected at 17 and a half and took office as a justice of the peace in 1990. So that stopped the college football or wrestling or swimming career and stayed at Collin College. Got behind a desk, stopped working out, slowed down my metabolism, started putting weight on at about 25 years of age, plus a lot of stress, going through an election cycle every 3 years, sitting on a bench at 18, knowing that you've got people's lives in your hands. It's a lot of stress. And that's what I became, was a stress eater. My family genetically was coded that after 21, 22, their metabolism would slow down and they would put weight on. For the women in my family, it was when they would start having children. And it would become much more difficult to take that weight off. And so they would become obese. Well, post 25, I started becoming obese and probably lived that way probably until I was about 40, probably 43, 44. Now, what's interesting, and people are funny, they would be like, oh, you're so overweight, we're worried about your health and you need to lose weight. And then they would ask me, hey, what's your blood work and stuff? It's got to be horrible. Your doctor's got to be angry. And it's like, no, sadly, it's not. It's, are you diabetic? Nope, not diabetic. Are you high cholesterol? Nope. In fact, my cholesterol is low. In fact, I've got to do more exercising to raise the good side of the cholesterol because both of them were so low. Oh, you got high blood pressure? Nope, don't have high blood pressure either. Oh, you must have something that's weight related. No, I really don't have anything medical. I'm not taking any medicines. And I was doing a wellness check once a year. I was going in and seeing my doctor. And so people were always shocked by that. Then they were even more shocked when they would see this 440-pound man walk onto the indoor soccer field and play indoor soccer once a week. And they're like, how does a guy that big? Because folks, sometimes it is genetics. And sometimes it's what you put in your mouth, and sometimes it could be both. And that's what I learned. What I learned was that whole Richard Simmons era with the fancy little jogging shorts and the tank tops. Well, you know what? He actually had something there for me in the way it related to me. And so at 43, I just decided, you know what? I'm done. I'm tired of it. I need to put myself in a good place. And so I cut out a bunch of activities so that I could cook for myself. What I found was that when you start cooking for yourself, you can control what goes into the pan and therefore control what goes into your mouth. And so you can control those calories going in and you can control the flavor of what you like. And so got a magnetic burner, got a pan, got a little refrigerator for under the desk, started cooking breakfast, lunch at work, having dinner at home, and not eating out as much. Now I started throwing exercise in, but truly 80% of it is what you eat. If you can control your eating and take care of that, then you generally can maintain a weight or even start losing weight slowly. Add exercise and you can lose weight very quickly with exercise and good dieting. And so I did that. And in less than 2 years, I went from 560 pounds to 232 pounds. My doctor, I would go see him like once every 2 months, let him know what I was doing because I was losing weight quickly. And he said, "You're healthy." He pulled my blood work when I was at 240, and he said, "It's almost like you recaptured the fountain of youth." He goes, "I've never, ever seen blood work this good for a 45 and a half, 44 and a half, 45-year-old man whose weight was where it was at for you." And he said, "It's just amazing what your blood work is." He said, and so I just continued to do JP's Kitchen, created the JP's Kitchen concept where I was sharing with other people because I had a lot of friends that said, "Hey, you got to share. We're noticing it. You're not talking about it, but you walk around and we see you and you're looking fantastic. Please share the message." So I did. My mother passes away when I was 45, and I decided to retire. And my dad was struggling still is tremendously emotionally, and just had a lot going on, going through a divorce. And the next thing you know, I start eating like I was before. I never figured out until now, of course, the maintenance side. There's the losing weight, gaining weight, but then there's in the middle that thing where you maintain your weight. And I never got to maintain your weight. Well, I've got it now. And I started to, again, mentally get rid of the things that get in my way of making good decisions for me, which is funny because I hold everybody else accountable when I'm doing truancy and truancy prevention measures, to take care of yourself, but I don't do it for me. And so those things are going by the wayside. Again, I'll start cooking for all my meals, not going out. And I do think that's a big key. And then how you build your grocery list. But yeah, I mean, it was fantastic. And then that climb back just seemed impossible. And then yet here I am back, not at the same. I'm still about 80 pounds lighter than what I was when I took that journey 3-4 years ago. So, but that's kind of where I'm at and kind of how I did it. And for me, it was counting calories and finding foods that I like. I refuse to eat diet foods. Diet foods replace calories with unwanted, unnecessary sugars and carbohydrates. And so I don't do them. And so I find ways to find alternatives to make my meals really good, but yet light in calories.
Now, you were so serious into JP's Kitchen that you actually had a menu at a local restaurant use your recipes.
Still do, yeah. Tino's too in Plano at Avenue K and Park Boulevard. We sat down and I sat in with his chef and we cooked for probably 3 months. We had a test group come in and he created a menu, a legitimate menu, and it makes up 25% of his business now. People who are not even trying to watch their weight love to eat what's on it because it's fresh and it just tastes really good.
Which is a message there, but anyway, their whole menu should look like that, right?
Yeah, right. Everybody should, right?
Anyway, so that's your story is one that probably could be told by 1 out of 3 or 4 Americans, right? We have been on a tough journey of steadily gaining weight as a society, as population. Matter of fact, I've done podcasts on type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset until the 90s. And then in the 90s, they started having this phenomenon of kids coming down with type 2 diabetes. And so they had to change the name because it wasn't only kids, adults who got type 2 diabetes anymore. Now, what was happening in the 90s, in the 80s, late 80s, 90s, that was triggering this? Well, of course, we all know the advent of fast food, of quick foods, convenient foods, and then really companies. And I don't know how you feel about this because you and I haven't talked a lot about health and wellness together. We just knew we had stories, but you and I may be on different pages in podcasts to come as far as outlooks on and around food and marketing and branding and all of that stuff. But I feel like food companies started playing with our health and wellness when they would make changes to foods like trans fats and what is that butter stuff that they
the spray butters.
ugh, and
But they're
all of
not
these
better at all.
all of these things that were created from a convenience standpoint, from a cheaper standpoint, and yet 10, 15, 20 years later, they're having to pull it from the market because the science around it showed that it was really bad from a health standpoint for ingestion by humans. And so all of that combination of really good tasting food out there with too much salt, too much sugar, too many chemicals, all of that sort of was in its initial stages in the late 80s, 90s, and so forth. And so as families gravitated and got busier and started leaning on fast foods as their dinner instead of sitting down at the dinner table together, we're seeing that really the increase in obesity in the United States for both children and adults is just staggering. So,
Well, and you could watch it over the decades. I remember in the late 70s when I was 7, 8, 9 years old, there was not a McDonald's on every corner. When you had to go a certain direction and it was pretty far away from our home, we would see the first McDonald's. Nowadays, you turn out of your subdivision and drive a half a mile, and there's a McDonald's or a Burger King or a Taco Bell or something that's generating fast food. And of course, kids become gravitated to that right away. And so in the 80s, some more built on, but kids were still eating at the dinner table with their families. In the 90s, it seemed like fast food chains just exploded and fast food became the thing. And, you're going to soccer practice. Well, let's drive through and get some chicken nuggets. We're going to football practice. Let's drive through and get you a hamburger,
for all
and
that
so
protein.
right. And really, it's not much protein at all, is what they found out. There was very little real beef in a McDonald's hamburger, their cheeseburger. So, yeah, it's just, and of course, all those things are punched full of sugar and different chemicals that turn into sugar that can be real bad for you. My biggest thing during JP's Kitchen is that I don't eat anything that has a processed sugar or a processed chemical in it. My sugars will come from a small apple or an orange or melons or berries berries, because I stay away from even bananas and grapes because of the high sugar content in a banana and grape, and it can convert into fat. And so I'll stay away from those kinds of things. Carrots, when I'm doing JP's Kitchen, I don't eat carrots. They're high in sugar. I find my beta carotene other places. And so there are things that you have to be careful with and you have to watch out, even though it looks healthy, right? You give your child light ranch dressing and the little carrots, and you're thinking it's a pretty healthy snack. Okay, it's healthier than French fries, but it's still providing you with sugar and complex carbohydrates, which can convert to fat.
Right. There's a soccer mom, and this is now going on several years, who has made a national effort to try to get parents to stop giving, and this will sound familiar, Gatorade, the goldfish, and a granola bar as the after soccer game or practice snack. Because if you add up all of the nutrients, I use that term lately, all the chemicals, all the sugar, and sodium, that one snack uses up a third of the kids' daily caloric requirement and like half of the sodium, and ridiculous. When in fact, what did you have when you were a kid? Orange slices. Remember that?
Right. Orange. That's when we had orange slices. And I was of the age where they started coming out with Capri Suns.
Mm-hmm.
So it was Capri Sun and an orange slice after the game.
The Capri, that's on the edge, but we've got to get our parents to stop using convenient foods and being fooled. Many of our parents are just flat out being fooled by granola bars and all of these healthy snacks. Even like you said, baby carrots are not really baby carrots. They are carrots that have been created from bigger carrots and then washed down with with chemicals to make them look bright and cute. So I would not suggest buying baby carrots anymore.
Right.
We are going to be such Debbie Downers, but at the other end of the Debbie Downer tunnel is a healthier you. So
Well, and it gives you a choice, right? So now you know that the baby carrot really doesn't grow out of the ground as a baby carrot, and that there's processing that goes along with that. And so, you can choose those if you want. That's your choice. Or you can pick up carrots with their stems on them still, and cut and clean. And if you want to take the skins off, take the skins off your carrots if you choose to. Some people do, and you can eat carrots that way. I don't either, but I also eat the entire potato. When I get a baked potato, I eat the skin and all, because I was told there's actually more protein in the skin than there is in the actual inside of the potato.
I actually eat orange and lemon rinds. My father was a big rind eater, and that's where a lot of the goodness of the orange and the lemon lies, is in the skin. So, yeah. So I've had sort of an up and down journey myself. My mother told me that the doctor put me on a diet at 3 months because I was born in the late 50s, and fat babies were happy babies. That was the culture. And breastfeeding had started being replaced by the bottle. And so the bottle, we now know, can never replace breast milk, but that was the 50s, where mamas were being sophisticated and sort of moving away from sort of traditional practices. And my mother was one who cried the first month she wasn't pregnant after she got married, because she wanted a kid so bad. 13 months later, here I come. She overfed me and overfed my fat cells. And we now know the science around fat cells, don't we? They never go away. You can shrink them, but they never go away. So thanks, Mom. But she meant well, right? And my father's side tended to obesity. My mother's side did not. But with sort of the perfect storm that happened between my mother overloving her child. Now, interestingly enough, she did not do that with the rest of the 3 kids that followed. My sister is a type 1 diabetic and got it when she was 9, stayed slender most of her life until 20s and 30s, and then the weight started coming on. But my father's side, that stocky German side, that was something that I battled from, like I said, from 3 months. And I lost weight by binging and purging back when I was in college. That was sort of popular back then. That was a new fad. And that would have been in the middle 70s. So in the middle 70s, binging and purging was exposed. I'm not saying it wasn't done before then. That's when it came out that was a tool that young ladies were using to manage their weight. And there were severe consequences with that. Luckily, I didn't go that whole road. But that's when also the science around eating disorders started coming out. And it's taken until y'all's show 3 years ago, was it, where we learned that eating disorders must be brain and body, not just brain work. And so all these years, so 1975-ish to 2000, let's say 18, you had all these decades of really poor information guiding people who had eating disorders. I think it's a little bit better now. Again, based on the people that I've seen on your radio show and your podcast, they've done some mega science work around that. And I believe they have a better handle on it. But that's how long all of this has taken to happen to adults, be studied, come up with treatments, come up with better, more effective treatments, and so forth. So anyway, I ended up, I did lose weight in college. I got down to about 150 pounds. I was 5'3" at the time. And it was enough to find, to date a little bit, get married. I got married at 21 after I finished college at 20. I got married at 21. And I didn't want to get married. I was working at the time. I was an engineering assistant. And I was a woman's lib type. My father raised us to be executive. My mother had her ladylike ways, and that was a battle in the home. I won't bore you all with that at the show, but it was a tussle being a kid in the 70s and 80s because of the women's lib stuff and trying to fit into the workplace and all of that. And so, long story short, I got up to 240 pounds or more. I'm not sure. I stopped counting at 240. And I had 3 babies during that time at that weight or beyond. And again, much like you said, I was smoking at the time. I was smoking. I was the healthiest fat smoker you'd ever met. I could out-stamina anybody my age. And again, when your body gets used to carrying that weight for a while, and you're a high energy person anyway, but I'm paying that now, but and that's why my favorite saying in the health and wellness arena is eat now for your health later. That's a huge piece, because if you think you're going to stop, you get better eating, oh, when I get older I'll do it, it's too late. The inflammation and the joint pain and so forth is already in there. But so 240 pounds, I gained 30 pounds within the first 3 or 4 months of getting married, because I was now cooking my new husband dinner. And, I was a proud wife. I was a good wife. I'd been raised by my mother, my 50s mother, right? While trying to figure out my feminist side and so forth. A lot of social thread pulling back in the day then. And it wasn't, let's see, I stopped smoking in 1999. And then in 2003, when I was principal, I was just, I needed to get this weight off. So I went and got a gastric bypass at the time. They have better ones now. This one, if you can believe this, they took 4 feet of intestine from you, along with putting your stomach in a pouch, because the thought was that that's that much less intestine to absorb calories. Well, guess what? They really hadn't studied that science, and there are IBS implications now, how many years later? So that was 2003, so that's 18 years ago, and now for the last probably 8 or 9 years, I've had IBS issues because I don't have my whole intestine. So I really had to work on myself. But to mention that the gastric bypass in 2003 did allow me, because I worked it. I understood that the gastric bypass was a tool, not the answer, not the panacea, not the it. And we all know people who had the gastric bypass and the balloon and all of this other stuff, and it just they lost weight, but then they put it back on, right? We all know people like that. But I got down 100 pounds for about 15 minutes because I wanted to be able to say I had reached the century mark. And so I got down to 140 within probably a year or two. And then I was still, I was a principal. I was working central office. I was doing my administrative job. I was getting my doctorate at the same time. I had 3 kids and a husband at home and managing all this stuff. And even though I was working out at Curves, which, in reflection, it really probably wasn't that much of a caloric hit for me, working a 30-minute circuit with the ladies, because mostly we did this. But the long and the short of it is that the weight started creeping back up. And I got to about 175 and made the commitment to myself that I wasn't going to go any higher. So I cut out all meat and sugars, meat, wheat, sugar, soy and corn that is not organic, because almost 100% of corn and soy is GMO, and really committed to a non-processed, clean food, whole food diet. And it It did help. I started going to 2 gyms at the same time because it took me a couple years to leave the ladies at Curves. I had been there 10 years. I'd been going 10 years with those ladies, but I was seeing that it wasn't enough. And then I started going to a second gym on top of that, and it was, oof, I had a little bit more energy back then. But long story short, I then got back down to mostly middle to high 40s to middle 50s. I bounced up and down for a few years there. And then a couple of years ago, I discovered intermittent fasting. And I bought into it. I bought into the concept of intermittent fasting, have done it, and have seen my lowest weight since I was a child at 128 pounds. Now, I don't see it often. I really hover more at 130, 132. But the power of these practices for me and for others who have joined me in it has been really mind-boggling. So I won't spend a whole lot of time talking more about that. That's probably another segment and another show. But that's been my journey. My journey is now maintenance, and maintenance is as important as the journey going down. So, and that's what you were referring to.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be able to maintain. Of course, I find that out after the fact. And again, the stress eating doesn't help. But, I got down to the weight I wanted to get to. And I was running, I was athletic, I was doing all the things that I've done in the past, and just said, okay, I'm good. And went back to eating the way I had before. And it doesn't work. You have to maintain. And part of that is building your grocery list and being disciplined and going and buying those groceries. And nowadays you've got so many groups that'll even bring your groceries to you that you almost have no excuse to grocery shop even online and have it brought to your home. And so I think it's important that you choose wisely at the grocery store. I highly recommend staying out of the middle of the grocery store. Almost everything in the middle is processed. And so you want to work on the outside of the grocery store. You want to use substitutes. I was going to tell you one of the things that they do with red meat. Red meat really isn't pink. Those are dyes and chemicals put in the meat to make it aesthetically pleasing to you because you believe that that pink is what it should look like. In reality, fresh meat is a very purple, very deep purple color because the blood has hit oxygen. And that's what happens to blood when it hits oxygen. It goes from a real pretty pink red or red color to a purplish color. And that's how you know you've gotten fresh meat, is if that meat is actually real purplish and not pink. So the more fresh you can buy, I recommend. And I'm not talking about organic. I'm talking about just fresh. You can go to your butcher and get fresh meat. You can go to a processing company. There are several meat processors all around our area where you can get fresh processed meat.
Grass-fed?
Grass-fed. They've got grass-fed. And so that way, you're getting good quality meat without all of the added stuff. Syracuse Meat Packing Company is a place I go to. Mueller's is another place I go to if I want to do that. And so, but what I find is that red meat has a much higher calorie count because it has a much higher fat count than turkey does, or than chicken even. And so I get extra lean turkey as a substitute, or I'll get as lean a chicken as I can get, and I'll use that as my meat product, or fish. Shrimp even. Shrimp is not real high in calories, and so you can even do shrimp.
So you have to be careful about the shrimp because a lot of it is farm raised from Vietnam. Right. So and that's maybe another show. But a couple, 3-4 years ago, I noticed this just shrimp everywhere. I'm thinking, where did all this shrimp come from? We're going to deplete the ocean's shrimp. No, it's coming from Vietnam, from their not clean.
And catfish too. Again, that's a whole nother show talking about the viability of the cleanliness of what you're getting. Yeah. See, it's like when I was at a restaurant in Richardson and they had catfish as a sale item. And I asked them, I said, is that is that fresh catfish or is that catfish from a farm? And is it catfish from Vietnam or China? And they went back, and sure enough, it was catfish shipped in from Vietnam. And I said, no, thank you, because I've seen the Discovery Channel.
Yeah, 100%. 100% of the tilapia in the United States is uneatable. Just don't touch it. We need to close that market down. But JP, we're running out of time already.
We are.
We are this is an easy chat between you and me, and we hope that our listeners will relate to it and want to come back and listen for more, because we really are up to date on what's good and healthy, the latest science, and how it impacts us personally and our own weight journeys. So thank you for agreeing to be on with me and for us doing this together. I think that this is going to be one of the funnest hours of our week.
There you go. I agree. I look forward to it as we start to take and get healthy.
Amen. See you next week, everyone.